So today we are starting a very important session on the concept of Tridanda, which is explained in Ayurvedic treatises. It is called as, you can translate this as the tripod of life. So it is the Charaka Samhita, which is the ancient-most scripture of Ayurveda, which explains and introduces this concept of Tridanda, or the tripod of life, in its very first chapter itself. And it says, Sattva, Atma and Sharira, which means mind, soul and body. These three are considered as the tripod of life. So what does tripod means? We know we have tripods even for mounting cameras, and you have a tripod where 3 legs or 3 feet are used to build up and to support something on top of it, to mount something on top of it. So this is the concept of a Tridanda, using 3 sticks to support something stabler on top of it. So we know that a tripod is not as stable as something which is constructed on 4 pillars. So it also shows you that this is a subtle balance. And of course, the tripod constructed structures are not such a strong structure. So this also tells you this balance of you using these 3 units, the mind, soul and body, is not such a stabler thing. And it is the union. The word used is samyoga. Samyoga in Sanskrit, probably many people know this word because of the word union. And union is nothing but becoming one, or 2 or more things coming together and kind of dissolves into and integrates into one. This is the process of what is known as samyoga. It's almost like mixing salt or mixing sugar or mixing honey, or 3 things into one medium. So something dissolves, few factors dissolves together and become one. So this is how Ayurveda explains the life manifesting by the union of mind, soul and body. So it shows that if any of these 3 pillars have some problems, have some pathology, that will lead to the disturbances and imbalances of the whole stuff which is built up, which is life. So this is the information first we gather, that if one is damaged, everything is damaged. And all the living beings, not only human beings, all the living beings which are manifesting have all these 3 levels of existence. And it is this union of mind, soul and body which is leading to what is known as the observer, or the life, the consciousness. So they say it is Sapuman, it is the subject. So once soul, mind and body comes together and unites in the proper way, that leads to a manifestation of life, that leads to the manifestation of the subject or the observer, and that is the subject matter of Ayurveda. Or this science called Ayurveda is not just to treat body, is not just to treat mind, and not just to treat soul. It is, and these three entities will not exist independently as well. Human life or any life form will manifest through the embodiment of a soul which is mediated by the mind. So, this is the introduction where the tripod of life is being explained. And now, how Ayurveda explains birth or embryogenesis is another context where the concept of mind, soul, etc. becomes very clearer, because according to the Western and modern medicine and modern science, biology, life form is just formed when a sperm is combined with ovum, or a fertilization of ovum will lead to next generation's birth. Whereas Ayurveda clearly explains that it is the sattva, they use the word sattva, which invades into a fertilized ovum. Only when a sattva, which is a kind of a stimulated mind means a mind which is combined with soul, which is called as a subtle body, which gets separated during death from the physical body. So we have a gross body which is called as the sthula sharira, the physical body, and in which there is a subtle body which is comprised of mind, senses and soul. And during death, this subtle body detaches and comes out of it, and the body decomposes. So this detached soul along with mind is called as sattva, which is told as the main responsible factor for a birth or for a embryogenesis. So a sattva, due to its passion to continue doing what it wanted to do in previous lives, is the force of birth according to Vedic sciences including Ayurveda. So a sattva, due to the karma klesha, the word used is karma klesha, due to the force or due to the temptation in the mind to enjoy doing what it wanted to do and establish, it finds the right fertilized ovum and enters into it, and life is manifested. And there they use a beautiful simile, how fire establishes when you kind of rub or create friction in between two substances. Like how matchstick creates fire when it is rubbed with the matchbox. Or in a modern context, we can say how electricity, the electric energy when it invades into a electric lamp, how it produces light together. In the same way, the sattva, the mind along with the soul, tempted by its previous actions, wanting to fulfill its intentions, invades into and waits for the right embryo, for the right context, and for the right being also, even a species selection, to fulfill its desires. and then invades into it and embodies and manifests as a living being. So this is the first paradigm difference, that Ayurveda understand that life is not formed, a new life is not formed out of just the sperm and ovum, or just by the union of just two gonads. That we know even by artificial insemination or in vitro fertilization and various techniques. Even they combine the best quality ovum and with the best quality sperm in vitro and create an embryo, and then even when they implant that into a lady's uterus, still the success rate of such techniques are around 25 to 30%. So scientifically they cannot explain why this is not still supported. Of course, there can be even some physical factors which might be the endometrial health and hormonal health, etc. But even when all those things are optimal according to Ayurveda and the Vedic sciences, if into this ovum, fertilized ovum, a life will not manifest. So this is a difference, basic difference between the perception of Ayurveda with modern science. So, being understood that, we will get into a bit more understanding of sattva, the mind. So, when they explain the tripod, the tridanda, sattva, atma and sharira, it was explained in this order: the mind, soul and body. This was the order in which they explained it. And there's a discussion between the commentators why mind was explained first. And they say, once manifested, once this tripod is set, both body and soul cannot function without the mind. Or for all the activities of physical and spiritual, this is determined and controlled by the mind and its thought and its intentions. So there the mind get a supremacy. And in another chapter, when all sensory faculties are explained, called Indriya Upakramaniya in Charaka Samhita, Charaka Samhita explains mind as Atindriya. Atindriya means a super sense or a suprasensory organ. Excuse me, I have to just, because some people are still trying to reach me and check through that. So I have to give that to somebody else. The answer, yeah? That's okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I again tell you that, because our browser didn't support the classroom function of Facebook, so I'm just coming live directly through Facebook. So many people who were registered through the classroom facility of the Facebook are still calling us and trying to see what is happening. So please let others who has been given notification through you that we are directly coming a separate live session other than the scheduled classroom. Okay, we come back to the topic. So why mind is called as a supra sense? It is called as a supra sense because all the other sensory organs, including eye, nose, ear, tongue and skin, are only able to perceive things from external world. We are only able to perceive things from outside. We are not able to process things, or we are not able to know what is happening inside you by using your senses. So your senses are always extraverted. It's only you're not able to perceive anything. You're not able to look inside you using your eyes. Whereas, of course, mind also is able to perceive what the senses brings, what stimulus, what objects the senses brings into it, and mind perceives it as either a pleasure or a pain, or it relates with some memory and interpret it. So of course mind has that function of perceiving and interpreting the stimulus from outside, but it has the capacity to process this multiple stimuli received through various senses and to come to conclusions, analyze it, think about the possibilities and speculate things. So all these higher mental functions, so-called higher mental functions, and analyzing this data, creating an internal environment of knowing process is there, which is still a mystical area to modern science, is done by the mind. That's the number one reason why mind is considered as an atindriya or a suprasense. And not only that, mind is essential to perceive the stimulus through any other sense. When I listen to my eye, through my mind, then only I am seeing something. When I am bringing the contact of my mind to my ear or my hearing center in the brain, then only I am really listening the sound. So all other senses needs the presence of mind in it to enable its perception. That's number two why mind is considered as a suprasense. And it is much more subtler compared to other sensory organs, and it is much more complex to understand. That's another reason why mind is considered as a suprasense or atindriya. And then now, how does this whole knowing process happens is through contact of four things. Contact of the soul, the knower, the consciousness, the awareness in us, which is called as soul, gets a desire and a stimulus or an interest and initiates an inspiration in the mind. So the soul, which is responsible for effort, desire, etc., creates a contact or establishes its contact with the mind. And then the mind, which is stimulated and inspired by the initiation of the soul, connects itself with the corresponding sense organ, and then that organ is searching for the sensory objects and makes a contact between the object and the sense or the sensory organ. So these four factors, the sensory object, the sensory organ, the mind and the soul. When there's a strong bondage in between all these four factors, it is when we start perceiving, the perception, the pratyaksha, or the process of perception is initiated. And when we listen to some object for some time, a sensory organ gets tired and the contact between the sensory organ and the mind becomes looser. And once you are tired of listening to so many impressions over the day, you get tired and the mind becomes very tired, and this is when you feel sleepy. So there is a sensory tiredness when you overuse a sense, and there is a mental tiredness when there are multiple impressions, and then mind starts withdrawing from the senses. This is when we start feeling sleepy, and then it is disconnected from the senses. This is when you start entering into the first stage of sleep, which is dreamy stage of sleep, which is called swapna. And in the dreamy stage, the mind produces impressions from its perception, and mind observes that. So this is the dual aspect of mind, that mind has sensory and motor aspect. So the motor aspect of the mind is a very powerful thing, which can make any shape, any smell, any touch, any stimuli within. And the sensory aspect of the mind will be observing that. So the mind observes mind. This is what is happening in the sleep state, especially in the dream state. And once still the soul becomes tired of watching this, it disconnects from the mind, and this is when sushupti or the deep sleep happens, where the mind and the soul has lost its connection. And then you are no more conscious. So for a state of consciousness, even if the consciousness is the very nature of your soul, but to have that consciousness reflected and experienced, you need the association of mind with it. That is the importance of mind, as we have told in the beginning. This is why in the triad, mind gets a strong or a leading position. Even if soul is the responsible substratum for giving life and consciousness, when it is disconnected from mind, we don't experience that consciousness. We almost fall unconscious in the deep sleep. And so this is the process of soul, mind, sensory organs and sensory objects getting in line and doing the process of perception. Now, the text comes to the concept of the spiritual substances. What is internal substances or spiritual substances? It's called as Adhyatma Dravya Guna Sangraha, according to Charaka. Means spiritual substances and properties. So the mind, thoughts, intentions, and your soul. In Sanskrit, it will be called as mana, which is mind. Mano Artha, the objects of mind, or the what is being perceived by the mind, which is nothing but the thoughts, the thought waves. Then the buddhi, here the mano buddhi, the intention, which is easily better translated as your intention. Then the atma, the soul. So these four are together called as Adhyatma Dravya Guna Sangraha. This is your basic internal spiritual tool of life. And it is these four factors: mind, your thoughts, your intentions, and your consciousness. These four factors, how they function, determines the Shubha and Ashubha, whether positive things happens or negative things happens. This is a very important topic that we are coming to. Now, why Ayurveda wants to say that you are not just body. Life is not just body. Treatment or diagnosis is not just a physical process. It's just because of this. Because the fate of the body, what happens to your body, is determined by what happens in your mind, in your thoughts, in your intentions, and in your consciousness. Because this is what functions the body. Body is just a physical manifestation of these things. And all good and bad that happens to body is just an effect of these four things. So they say that there are three possibilities of abnormalities. Over usage, which is called as Ati Yoga, less usage, Hina Yoga, or improper or perverted or abuse or misuse of these faculties. These three things will lead to Ashubha, diseases, unhealth, lack of peace in your life. So, when the mind, thoughts, intentions, and consciousness, they interact excessively or interact less or interact improperly, that will lead to disease and uneasiness and lack of peace. Whereas when your mind, thoughts, intentions and consciousness functions in the right way, in the right place, in the right moment, that is the only cause of health. That can only give you peace, and that can only be the cause of health. So we know that even our usage of screen, when we use something like a mobile phone or laptops or computers, it's a time when we overuse screens. It's a very good example of Ati Yoga, excessive usage. So this is not just creating problems in the eye, but also creating problem. Or the text says that the Mano Buddhi is being damaged by its improper usage. So this is as good as, when you say Mano Buddhi is damaged, your intentions are damaged. Or this is as good as you start developing addictions. So addiction is not just something with substances. It need not be alcohol, or need not be drugs, or need not be cigarette or tobacco or something. It can be any sensory object, any object you can be addicted. You can be addicted to either over usage, no usage, or improper usage. And that will damage your Indriya Buddhi and you will develop an addiction. And it says that over usage will produce Udvega. Udvega is nothing but anxiety. Anxiety disorders, one group of problems. No usage will produce Dainya, which is very common to depression. And improper usage will produce perversions of mind. So this is how our usage of our own faculties, our sensory faculties, our mind, our thoughts, intentions, emotions, awareness, when used excessively, too less, or improperly, leads to a Mano Buddhi Vaikrita. So some wrong intentions or wrong tendencies start developing in our mind, which kind of overpowers our basic instincts, which overpowers and kind of establishes it abnormal tendencies not only in the mind, but also it is the same mind which runs many reflexes physically. So many of the neurological reflexes, hormonal reflexes, reactions and responses of body also starts getting imbalanced. So this is the very basic process of pathogenesis according to Ayurveda. So there should be a lot of emphasis even in physical diseases to find out where does it start from. It can be not only sensory objects or sensory organs, it can also be motor organs. organ of speech is a motor organ. So too much of speaking, not speaking, speaking bad things or abnormal things, this is a good example of how we misuse or improperly use our vagendriya or organ of speech. So organ of manipulation or organ of hand, organ of locomotion. So there are 5 motor organs. So all the motor organs and sensory organs, when they are used properly by the mind, then the Indriya Buddhi is re-established and in the harmonized way. And this is the only reason for health. So here also we understand what is a treatment. So the basic treatment is to diagnosis is to understand what is the wrong tendency and trend, what is set in a person's mentality and intention. It can be a workaholic tendency, and there are many tendencies which leads to such abnormalities. And to correct that by practicing a proper lifestyle, a proper life experience. So this is where processes like Panchakarma is very important. It's an opportunity for you to disassociate with the work and life situation that you were trapped in, and to withdraw and be in a space where the whole atmosphere is designed, the whole function is designed such that the mind, thoughts, intentions, awareness, body, senses, motor organs, all are given the best training to re-establish the right Indriya Buddhi and the Mano Buddhi, the intelligence and the trend in your higher mental functions. So this reorganization of your higher mental function is a inevitable process. So that means if you just do a Panchakarma, or try to, you cannot do a Panchakarma actually like this, but if you try to do a Panchakarma in the life situation where you are already, like, by going to work and doing whatever you would do in your home and functioning as how you were functioning before, and then using some hours to drink some ghee and do some purgation, etc., that's not going to be a proper Panchakarma. Because the very design of Panchakarma or Ayurvedic procedures, Ayurvedic healing process is to stop functioning in the improper way and then to bring you to an atmosphere where a proper functioning of these 3 layers of our existence and the proper functioning of these 4 factors, what we explained before, is induced. And it again tells you that the mental health, so the previous reference was not only speaking about mental health, it was speaking about all abnormalities, all the pathologies in general, whereas in another verse, Charaka Samhita says, thoughts and your intentions. The Mano Artha and the Mana Buddhi. In English we can translate it as your thoughts and your intentions are sole 2 factors which determines your mental health. So it's nobody else, it's nothing else, it's not people from outside, it's not what happens outside, because we see many of the times people complaining that it was my parents who did this to me, this is why I have this psychological problem, or it was a colleague, or it was a work situation. But not. It is your own thoughts and it is your own intentions. And Intention, having the right intention is one of the very important thing to have in your life, which is the most important factor which is responsible for your mental health. Not only that, the whole destination of your life. So having the right intention in your life, a pure intention, a true intention. When you listen to me, when I speak to you, my intention should be sharing what little I know to you to help you. There should not be any other intentions. So when you listen to me, the intention should be, how can I be benefited from what you listen? So if the intention is to anything else, then that is the basic problem that the world is facing. Many a times we have lost the right intentions and we do many things out of wrong intentions. And with the wrong intention, there can never be a right thought. And the thoughts will be absolutely perverted. So it is these two factors which determines your mental health. Not only that, the text promises you even external factors. So they classify the causes of diseases or the diseases into diseases of internal origin, diseases of external origin, and diseases of spiritual origin or diseases from previous lives. So they promises you, if you have the right thoughts, the right mind, the right intentions, and the right awareness, even external factors, including infectious agents, including wild animals, toxic creatures, natural calamities, or anything from outside which might influence your life and your health, will not come to you. This is a big promise from the text, because the soul and the mind is so powerful and its roots are so higher than our physical roots, so which directly connects you to the Supreme Self and the Supreme Consciousness, which is controlling all the events around us. Or in another way, we can also say that all the problems now, including the pandemic, including the war, including all the challenges that humanity faces now, or the world faces now, is basically because of the wrong intentions and the wrong thoughts. And it's a very, very important thing to sit, to disconnect from everything else, and to be very silent, and to re-establish and think what I want, and what is the basic intention of my life, with which I want to function. What am I living for? What I want to do, what I want to establish and accomplish. So I think it's a time for the whole humanity to think about it. So now the question is how to reorganize the mind, thoughts, intentions, and your awareness. When you say awareness, soul, as I told you before, your cravings, your desires, your inspirations, etc. are part of it. Your ego, it's all part of your soul. So how to set all of them in the right way? They say yama and niyama is the answer in yoga, and sadvritta is the answer in Ayurveda. They explain in the context of daily regimen, day-to-day activity, half of the text is just focusing on how to lead a moral life. physically, emotionally, spiritually, how to position yourself, how to position yourself within your body, within your family, within your society. The right code of conduct becomes takes a lot more information and plays a bigger role than the right nutrition and lifestyle. I repeat that statement because I know through Ayurveda and yoga, many people are motivated, and we mostly still work in the physical paradigm. So everybody says, I am doing yoga, I am practicing yoga, and then if you look at what you're doing, it's practicing asanas, the physical aspect of it, practicing some postures, some physical exercises. Well and good, that's very important. The physical balance, the right food, the right exercises, the right amount of sleep, it's all very important. But it is of no use if the code of your conduct, if your self-approach, if your approach towards yourself, and if your approach towards your life, your approach towards your friends, your family, your approach towards the society where you live, the approach towards the world, and moreover, your approach towards the whole universe, if it is wrong, health is never possible. We had a motto, WHO, the World Health Organization had a motto in 2000. When we studied medicine 20-25 years ago, WHO inspired us by saying that health for all by 2000 was the motto. By 2000, World Health Organization thought that by distributing vaccines, giving antibiotics, giving nutritional supplements, using antiseptic lotions, they are going to control the whole spectrum of diseases. And we have seen what has happened by 2000. We have seen what has happened by 2019 and what is happening in 2022. Cancer has become something like common cold. Many fatal diseases. The incidence of all such diseases are much higher in so-called developed countries, which is really a thought-provoking thing. You look at the incidence of cancer. The underdeveloped countries are much less affected by such fatal diseases. The more you develop, the more fatal diseases you have. So the whole concept of development, the whole concept of health management has gone wrong. Is because of the single reason that the world has failed to consider mind and awareness and consciousness in the right way. Rather, I would add the fact that the moment you speak about mind and soul, people would laugh at you because you are speaking very unscientific. The science don't want to even consider mind. The science don't want to see the agony and the crying, the tearful eyes of a patient. You just want to treat the physical body, which doesn't work. So, I would like to say, according to Ayurveda, even if you don't eat the best nutritious food, even if you don't use the best antiseptic lotions and best vaccines, but if you have the right code of conduct, the right thoughts, the right intentions, the right awareness, the right consciousness, the right mind, right attitude, that towards yourself, towards your family, your friends, your society, and the whole cosmos, that is enough. That is enough to be healthy. And probably you know that yogis has proven that. A yogi eats only once a day and acts minimum, but he is much more healthier. Even the word healthier is not enough. He is much more profound in his presence and in the being, which is the way the Eastern sciences and the ancient sciences across the world, beyond the East or West, has been propagating. And that is what is the relevance of this whole discussion. Understanding that without considering mind, your thoughts, your intentions, your awareness, your consciousness, your attitude, we cannot manage life properly. We cannot imagine to address health properly. And coming to the end of this whole discussion, it's very interesting. Even 3000 years ago, when Charaka Samhita, one of the ancient scriptures, was discussing about soul, which is called as Atma, and rebirth, even at that time, the text says that many people may not agree with these concepts. Whether soul exists, whether consciousness exists, whether rebirth exists, may not be something that everybody might agree with. And it's very interesting to see that even Charaka Samhita lists a huge list of evidences through which you can understand logically that soul does exist and rebirth happens. So as an evidence of rebirth, that we are not our body, we are not just the product of your father and mother, or you are not really the child of your father and mother. You are a consciousness which was there, which never had beginning and which never had an end. The text lists a lot of evidences. I will quote some of the relevant evidences that the text proposes. It says, hey, look at the children of the same parents. If they have, same parents have 4 or 5 children, you see how dissimilar they are. How dissimilar the children are from the parents. How their tendencies, their intelligence, their attitudes, their intentions are different from their parents. How the siblings of the same parents are different from each other in these aspects. That's the first thing they want you to listen to. That clearly tells that your consciousness, your intentions, your affinities, your tendencies are not just genetic, are not just that you inherit from the genes and chromosomes of your parents. It's not that they didn't understand about genetics. Even for many diseases, they have listed very clearly and precisely genetics and genetic imbalance as the cause rather. And they even bring up the issue of a newborn baby of any species, not only human being, how it cries, how a baby of a mammal, not only human being, search for the mother's udder and mother's breast and try to feed itself through mouth. So where is education? Who has given this information that it's the mouth through which you have to feed, and that your mother has a breast, and there's a source from where you get this feeding from? You can see even a newborn baby laughs at a pleasant sound and a pleasant environment. And a newborn baby is frightened by factors that usually frightens any other being. So usually you get afraid from a memory of a past trauma. But when a newborn baby is afraid of the same stimulus, where does that memory come from? It also tells you that, see, different people or different children of the same father and the mother has different likings and dislikings and have different skills. Some children speak faster. Some children even speak before they learn any language. They just make sounds and they try to communicate to you orally, and even at the age of 6 months. Whereas we see sometimes some children even doesn't speak properly even at the age of 4. So different children develop different skills at different rates and different speeds and different ages. So they list a lot and try to tell you, see, there are a lot of things that you inherit, not from your parents, but from your previous life. And finally, they also says, interestingly, evidences of children remembering the experience of their past lives. Probably you might have read many books about it. Many crimes, a child remembering its death in previous life through an attack and proving it, going to the area and exactly remembering where he was killed. Probably you all might have read about experiences or books being written on such direct experience and memory of certain people when the previous life has such a big trauma. It can even be remembered in next lives. So even the text speaks about such possibilities that some people can have the smriti, the memory of previous lives. So these are all, they quotes this as an evidence of the continuity of life. And it's where Ayurveda also classifies diseases into 3. Diseases can be because of imbalance of doshas physically. Diseases can also be because of certain wrong actions done in previous life according to Ayurveda. It is called karmaja vyadhis. Especially in diseases of psychiatric origin, skin diseases, fertility disorders. There are specific diseases where they say the cause can be from previous lives. How a physician comes to this spiritual cause of a disease? When there is no evidence of physical imbalance, a person is having the right food, a person is having a perfect lifestyle, a person is having a good state of mind and mental environment and psychological environment, don't have any genetic predisposition to this disease, and you don't find any logical reason why a person develops a disease, but still a person develops a serious disease. It is when the text says that the cause is unseen. It's called adrishtam. There's an unseen cause. It can be due to some serious wrong way of functioning, some bad karmas that the soul might have done or the sattva might have done in its previous life. So we know just by birth, many people are born into a very lucky and fortunate life situation. And we know that just because some people are born into certain places, we know the example of Ukraine now, and just because some people are born into certain families, they become very unlucky and unhealthy. How does this happen? That why this person is born in this place and is exposed to such a fortunate situation, and why another person is born to another place with such an unfortunate situation? There should be a cause for every effect. There is a logic behind this theory. Ayurveda believes that there is no effect without a cause. And if the cause is not seen, there should be an unseen cause, which is carried by the soul, the consciousness, the mind from the past lives. So this is where diseases has been listed, where the cause of the disease can be spiritual, not physical. And hence, Ayurveda classifies treatments also into three. There are three types of treatments prescribed in Ayurveda. The first type is called Daiva Dyapastraya, which is the spiritual treatments. And the word Daiva stands for accumulated past actions. Many people might confuse the word Daiva as God. Daiva is not God, but there is no God actually in Vedic literature. Daiva is nothing but accumulated actions. So your fate and destiny is determined by your actions. So if the cause of a disease is your past life's actions, the treatments are penances, the treatments are certain rituals, the treatments are certain vows, treatments are certain pilgrims that you do to re-establish this manobuddhi, this mental intentions, and the whole thing what we have been discussing before. So, Daiva Dyapastraya Chikitsa, or performance of rituals, performance of certain fire ceremonies, performance of, or even wearing certain talismans, wearing certain gems, doing certain chanting of mantras, etc., has been explained precisely to work against precise improper actions that you have done in this life or past lives. So this part of Ayurvedic treatment is called as Daiva Dyapastraya Chikitsa. Whereas, if the cause of a disease is physical, then the treatment option is Yukti Dyapastraya Chikitsa, rational treatment, where you use the right nutrition, the right lifestyle, the right therapies, physical therapies, the right medicines to logically correct the physical imbalance. So this logical treatment to correct the physical imbalances is what is called as Yukti Dyapastraya Chikitsa in Ayurveda. And finally, we have Sattva Avajaya Chikitsa to treat psychological diseases or mental problems. As we have seen, the origin of mental disease is from the wrong thoughts and wrong intentions and wrong exposure, wrong actions. So Sattva Avajaya Chikitsa is nothing but avoiding those wrong contact, wrong exposures and wrong intentions, and re-establishing and training the body, the mind, the soul, the thoughts with the right sattvic, positive actions, introducing positive objects, introducing positive thoughts and tendencies into one's life and avoiding the negative is what is known as Sattva Avajaya Chikitsa. So to treat mental diseases or diseases which are of psychological origin using Sattva Avajaya Chikitsa, treating physical disorders, diseases which has physical origin through logical usage of either the right hot or cold or dry or wet or the opposite qualities of what is being imbalanced or being in excess in the second type of treatment, and using Daiva Dyapastraya Chikitsa in spiritual diseases where improper actions of your internal faculties, either this life or previous life, is the cause. You use mantras, you use rituals, you use pilgrims, you use gems and wearing talismans, and you use vratas like fasting and so to re-establish the positive energy and to neutralize the effect of the bad karmas that we have done. This is how the understanding of this triad, the tripod of life, the body, mind and soul reflects in the whole design of Ayurvedic treatments. So a physician in a Panchakarma or a treatment procedure would look into any given disease and try to list out how many of psychological factors are contributing to the pathology, how many of physical causative factors are contributing to it. Is there any spiritual origin, like factors which contributes to the disease? And will plan a wise treatment plan for the disease accordingly, including the right Daiva Dyapastraya, the spiritual, the right logical, the physical, and the right psychological therapy into one's treatment procedure. So if you look into the whole design of a Panchakarma, right from getting up in the early morning and doing some rituals and chanting, the whole design which we will discuss in the coming weeks. So we have been scheduling this course as a 3 weeks weekend courses. Today we just introduced this importance of concept of tripod, body, mind, soul, understanding of Ayurveda. And the next week we are going to understand the three dosha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and how that physical doshas influences your life and pathology and healing. And the last week we are going to look into the whole design of Panchakarma, how this understanding of three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and three dandas, the tripod of life, is being wisely integrated in the whole design of Panchakarma is what we're going to look in the last session.